With just 31 games remaining and the calendar turning to September, the Rays' sense of urgency has increased if they wish to make it to the postseason. And tonight, lefty Drew Smyly goes to the hill against Orioles opening day starter Chris Tillman. Tonight, the Rays continue this road trip, game 2 of a 3-game series with the Baltimore Orioles. A win last night, and the Rays are within 3.5 games of the second wild card spot, presently held by Texas. Minnesota a game back. The Rays now sharing a spot with the Angels. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball. Big road trip for the Rays, and they got off on the right foot last night. With Brian Anderson, Dwayne Stats, great to have you aboard. Well, Brian, a good night for the Rays last night, and Asdrubal Cabrera, who had a great month of August, paralleling what the Rays did.
We keep talking about Asdrubal. He keeps hitting. I mean, his month of August statistically, by far and away his best month, and it's not even close. You think about the average at 356, on-base percentage of 400, more doubles, more runs scored, more home runs, more runs batted in. I mean, you go down the list, every category, Asdrubal Cabrera is just blowing the rest of the year out of the water. And really, there's no reason to think that he will not keep it going, because he's shown that ability as a switch hitter to be able to go up there and be productive from both sides of the plate, and that's what has really been impressive. Is Cabrera right-handed, left-handed, it doesn't matter, he just keeps swinging it.
Rays hoping to build off a successful August as they move into September, and tonight they'll send the left-hander Drew Smyly, who has had success against this Baltimore ball club throughout his career. Rays and the Orioles moments away from Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Rays and the Orioles squaring off tonight. Rays come in trying to get to 500. They are 65 and 66. Baltimore on a 5-game losing streak, falling 5 under at 63 and 68. Starting lineup for the Rays tonight, presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Grady Sizemore is going to lead off. He'll be in left, followed by Daniel Nava hitting second, playing right field, and Evan Longoria at third, hitting third. The DH, John Jaso at second base. Logan Forsythe at shortstop as Jubal Cabrera. James Loney hits seventh at first. Brandon Geyer's in the lineup in center field in the place of Kevin Kiermaier. J.P. Arancibia will catch, and he will bat ninth.
And they'll be going up against right-hander Chris Tillman. They never seem to miss Chris Tillman. This is the 5th series against the Orioles. They have faced him in every single one of them. 4 starts against the Rays already. And I'll tell you what, through the first 14 starts of the year for Chris Tillman, he was 5-7 with a 6.22 earned run average. But in his last 10, 4-2 with a 2.70 has really turned his season around. And let's take a look at the defense and see how it's going to line up behind Chris. Brought to you by BMW. In the outfield, left to right, we have Steve Pearce, Adam Jones, and Dario Alvarez. Across the infield, third to first, Manny Machado, Paul Janish, Jonathan Scope, and Chris Davis, with Matt Wieters behind the plate.
All set to play ball. Here's Sizemore. Grady starts tonight hitting .222. 6 home runs for the Rays against the right-hander Chris Tillman. First pitch of this game presented by Pinch a Penny, and that's in there for a strike. 90 degrees here as we start this game. Sizemore quickly down in the count, 0-2. Well, you're right about Tillman. From the 5th of June until the 17th of August, he won 7 consecutive decisions, 9-9 overall. That's how to play.
Well, the one thing that Chris Tillman does is stay unpredictable. He mixes his pitches very well. No pitch really stands out as far as a plus pitch, but he's got a great mixture.
And still up, 2 strikes on Sizemore.
But here, these are the type of games where it comes down to execution, because the Rays have seen Chris Tillman a ton. At the same time, he's seen those guys. Everybody, there's no secrets here in these types of matchups.
And another foul ball out of play. You could take a look at his numbers against the Rays. His lifetime mark through 18 starts, 5-8, with a .387 earned run mark. Pitch wide, 1-2. Daniel Nava on deck. And again, a foul ball. So Sizemore down in the count extends this at bat, leading off.
Yeah, and guess what? He's forced Chris Tillman to throw almost all of his pitches. He's seen the fastball, he's seen the curveball, just saw a changeup. Not only is he getting to see them, but so is the bench. Let's see what kind of action he has here tonight.
And he fouls it again, a fastball that time.
Well, these get to be frustrating at bats. You're looking to put a guy away early to start off a ball game. You jump out ahead of him, and then he goes into battle mode, and you have to work really, really hard.
He is 8 pitches in, the 1-2. And he got it.
Now, I'll tell you what, Grady Sizemore went down not without a fight and not without showing the Rays dugout all 4 of Chris Tillman's pitches, because he finally, that last one was the slider down and in. So in this one at bat, Tillman had to go to all 4 pitches before he retires Sizemore.
Here's Daniel Nava. of a 186 overall between Boston and the Rays. 234 with the Rays. His home run came in a Tampa Bay uniform. And he takes a strike. Tillman coming into this game off a couple losses to Minnesota and Kansas City. Into left center field. That's going to fall for a base hit. Pierce, playing left, comes in to make the pickup. And Nava has a single the other way.
Just a little soft serve out into left field.
Well, here is the big matchup presented by GMC. Evan Longoria with 6 career home runs and a career average of .372 against Chris Tillman.
Boy, and a lot of it has been the elevated fastball from Chris Tillman. Those are the pitches that Evan has not missed.
Takes a breaking ball low. Longoria hit a towering home run last night. Got it out to left center. And he's under this one, pops it into shallow right. Let's scope out now. Alvarez will run him off, and the right fielder Alvarez makes the catch.
And that's typically the pitch that Evan destroys. It's that straight as a string fastball that's right up there around between the belt and the letters. Boy, he's hoping he gets to see that pitch once again, because this is good hitting, and those are the ones that he's done his damage on.
Now John Jaso, the DH, and hitting cleanup. Pitch away a bit. Shift is on. Yadish, the shortstop, on the first base side of second, and scope right between first and second on the outfield grass. Missed the fastball, 1-1. Puts him down in the count. 1-2.
I'll tell you, the hair is held up.
Held up or held on?
Yeah. You may not be able to get rid of it now. It might have a mind of its own.
It will not leave.
Yep, it's now making decisions.
Cut and a miss. He missed a fastball. A little extra on that one from Tillman. We go to the bottom of the first. No score. The lineup for the Orioles, presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Manny Machado leads it off back at third. Steve Pearce and then Adam Jones. Chris Davis, the cleanup hitter. Matt Wieters hits fifth. He'll catch. Jonathan Scope hits sixth in front of the DH Caleb Joseph. Dario Alvarez, right field, the number 8 hitter, and Paul Yanish, the shortstop, hits ninth.
Well, Drew Smyly taking the mound tonight here for the Tampa Bay Rays and kind of looking to put it all together. You see his season numbers. It's been a difficult season for Drew, but he's going to get an opportunity to finish out the year strong and looking to go back and do the kind of work that he did in Oakland against the A's, where he pitched into the 6th inning and did not give up a run.
His 7th start overall, his 4th since returning from the disabled list with the labrum issue. And his first pitch, Machado takes it for a ball. Manny Machado hitting .290 with 26 home runs, and there's a strike. It's 1-1.
Yeah, and a dangerous bat to come rolling right out of the dugout to lead a game off. You see those numbers right there.
And he's reaching for that one. 1-2.
How slow can you go? And Drew Smyly has a very slow, big breaking curveball.
Fly ball into left. Sizemore closing is there, and he makes the catch.
Well, after that nice catch by Grady Sizemore, let's set that Rays defense for you here. Brought to you by BMW. Of course, Sizemore left, Brandon Geyer in center, and Daniel Nava over in right, and then across that infield third to first. Well, pretty standard stuff here. Longoria, Cabrera, Forsythe, and Loney. JP Arancibia getting the call behind the plate tonight.
Pierce, pitch to him is down. Steve Pearce hitting .227. He has 9 home runs.
If you don't mind, Dwayne, for the rest of the evening, I'm going to go with Pork Chop Pierce. T squared.
They're extending out beyond the ear flap.
That's throwback.
Well, they went back 20 years to commemorate Cal Ripken and consecutive game streak, and Pierce might go back just a few years prior to that.
He thought it was 200. He put an extra 0 on that.
Well, he draws a walk on 4 pitches and heads to first. Gets Adam Jones up there with a man on and 1 out. Jones had an RBI single last night. He was on 3 times, reaching on an error and a walk with that RBI single. And the pitch is a strike.
We've seen a number of fastballs by Drew Smyly already at the bottom of the strike zone. That could be a key pitch for him, because if he can work it down there, we know he likes to elevate. Then you think about the changeup, the curveball, the different ways that he can manipulate that strike zone.
A high fly ball. Geyer is there waiting for it to come down, and he makes the catch. Well, this is, as you well know, a park where you have to be careful with location, because it can be friendly to hitters. And if you're going to elevate, you want to truly elevate.
Yeah, and Drew's actually really good at that. He's one of the guys that you trust to elevate, because he gets it up above the hitting zone and knows what hitters he can do it with. That's the key, too. This being one of them.
Chris Davis, 3rd in the major leagues in home runs. He has hit 35. And the pitch is a strike. One and one. Well, we know that Smyly is a pitcher who can give a hitter something to think about, because he can pitch up in the zone and down in the zone.
And then think about the change of speeds. Think about that curveball, how slow it is. Even if you recognize it, as we saw with Machado, the second time, the second curveball that he had seen, he was still way out in front. So not only do you have to recognize the pitch, but then you have to stay back. And he's got a lot of different ways to get you out, and we've seen plenty of that his time with the Rays.
The cut and a miss. He strikes out Chris Davis. So a walk and a man left to go with the strikeout. Logan Forsythe will open the second, no score. Is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Outback Steakhouse curbside takeaway. Making your steak come to you has never been easier. Order online at Outback.com. And by Morgan Auto Group. Make it Morgan. We make it happen. Logan Forsythe. Pitch is a strike. Logan hitting .281 with 15 home runs now. He had everything but a home run last night. A triple, single, and double in a 3-for-4 night. Fell a home run short of hitting for the cycle.
Well, he's been fun to watch this year for a lot of different reasons.
Foul, and the count to 1-2.
Well, here's 3 reasons why. And how about that? 2 to right center, 1 that he pulled in to left center. That's that ability to use the whole field, spray the ball around, really opens up a lot of opportunities for Logan.
And he's really been the model of consistency if you look at his season month to month. And here's the breakout. It's pretty amazing, actually.
I mean, up and down. His worst month, 247. Everything else between 282 and 297. Home runs about the same.
This one back of the mound. Forsythe is going to beat it out. That's going to be a base hit. Tillman deflected it in behind the mound. And by the time Yadish could react, there was no play.
That ball came to a stop about halfway between the pitcher's mound and second base. This ball is roped off the glove, but into no man's land. Look how Logan stays inside of that baseball and still using the middle of the field. And it's funny because if that ball gets by Chris Tillman, there's a chance the way he was being defensed that would have been just a ground ball to Jonathan Scope, who was way up the middle.
Here's Asdrubal Cabrera. He homered last night, his 10th home run of the year. And he bunts it foul. Cabrera connecting against the left-hander Wei-Yin Chen last night.
The reaction, that's all you need to know. Just watch Asdrubal Cabrera. The ball leaves the bat. He knew where it was going to end up. And pushed that lead out to 3-0. Then you started to feel pretty good about the Rays' chances with Chris Archer on the mound.
Two strikes with another foul ball. Tillman 1-2 this year against the Rays. His last win overall to get to 9 wins came 3 starts ago on the 17th against Oakland. And he limited the A's to 2 runs, 3 hits, and 7 innings. 2 no decisions since then, or 2 losses since then. And when we go back over his last 10 since the 28th of June, you can see his breakout. First 6 3-0, and the last 4 1-2. But the ERA, the big difference.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of rough outings in there, obviously.
Just a piece of it to stay alive for Cabrera.
Well, it's just been an up and down year. He got off to a bad start. I mean, he had an ERA over 6 through his first 14 starts of the season. Then he went on that run that you were talking about with the 7 straight decisions that he was able to win. And then hit a couple bumps in the road here in the last couple of weeks.
That's a foul ball. Rays come into this game 6-7 against the Orioles this year. The Orioles now have lost 5 in a row and 11 of 12. Meanwhile, the Rays are trying to win 3 in a row. Trying to get back to the break-even point. And Cabrera is hit by this pitch. An 0-2 pitch, and that's going to push Forsythe up to second base.
Boy, that was a bad miss by Chris Tillman. I mean, if you didn't know any better, didn't know that this was an 0-2 count and that he had been working Cabrera, you'd say that was on purpose. I mean, an 0-2 pitch, and it's not even close, right on the backside of Cabrera, and the Rays with another base runner. Opportunity knocks already.
James Loney will get a chance here with 2 on and nobody out. Loney just 4 of 30 against Tillman, but he does have a double and a home run among the 4 hits. And he fouls it the other way. And there's our Toyota trend with Baltimore averaging just 2.8 runs over their last 12 games. The starters ERA over 6 and the bullpen over 4.5.
So you're not only losing, you're getting your doors blown in. I mean, these games, you're just getting doubled up every night, just like what happened last night.
1-1 to Loney. That's a tough place for a ball club to be. Entering September, you're disappointed with where you are, and you're on this streak where you've lost 11 of 12. That's a tough spot. Liner into left. Pierce is there to make the catch. That's the first out. What that situation does is give the Rays a great opportunity to make a little hay and continue to force the issue here in the closing month of the season.
Yeah, they need to go on a tear. They need to win some ball games. Obviously, that's no question about that. But winning series, we talked about it last night, at times is not going to be good enough. They're going to have to reel off 4, 5 in a row, 7 out of 8. You're going to have to go on a run. You've only got a few teams ahead of you, but there's a lot of ground to cover. And like you mentioned, the calendar's flipped to September. There's not a whole lot of time.
Here's Geyer. Brandon takes a pitch on the inside part of the plate. Well, this is the situation in regard to the wild card. See Texas holding the number 2 spot, a game up on the Twins, and the Rays have moved to within 3.5 again, sharing that spot with the Angels, then Cleveland and Baltimore. Cleveland moving in front of Baltimore.
Yeah, where did they come from? I mean, seemingly out of nowhere. That team was left for dead a couple of weeks ago, but they have that ability to run out. Salazar, Carrasco, Kluber, they can run out some dominant starting pitching, and they've started to swing the bats a little bit.
Well, and they've won 6 in a row and 8 out of 10, and when you do that, that'll spring you right back in there. Pitch up, and Geyer is out on strikes on the high fastball. So 2 outs after the Rays put the first 2 men aboard. And now it's J.P. Arancibia getting the start. Arancibia spent spring training with this Baltimore Oriole club. They ran out of room, wound up at Durham. And he takes a strike. Ground ball third. Machado will step on the bag, and the Rays are going to leave 2 an inning and a half, no score.
Memorial Park at Camden Yards. You saw in that last half inning Brandon Guyer getting a start against the righty today because Kevin Kiermaier with that mildly sprained right ankle, the catch of the year and maybe of the career to this point for Kevin Kiermaier. He came down with all his weight on that right ankle, didn't twist it all, but kind of a compression situation. So he is out of the lineup tonight. Kevin Cash hopes to get him back in there tomorrow. The other thing, guys, we're trying to play Kiermaier. It's hard to tell Kevin to go out there and give 75 or 80%. Back to you.
Well, you're right about that as Matt Wieters takes the first pitch for a strike. Smiley on the mound. Kevin Cash said he is available, although he'd prefer not to use him tonight. Wieters has a base hit.
And you wonder how much of that is gamesmanship. You know, you want to have Buck Showalter have to account for Kevin Kiermaier, but going back to what Todd said, he only has one speed. And so if you put him out there, if you want to give him an extra day, then you've got to give him an extra day. You can't tell him to go out there and say, hey, listen, just take it easy, pull the reins back a little bit. He just doesn't know how to do that.
Well, we saw that with the thumb.
Right.
And he turned that into a positive. Cut down his swing and had a great month of August. First pitch to Scope is a strike.
I guess that's one of the other pluses, you know, of not playing, but a couple innings last night, maybe sitting out here tonight, give that thumb a little bit more time. As you said, that's going to be something he deals with all year long. But you're right, he has absolutely used that to his advantage, and it's been fun to watch him grow as a player all season. We talked about Logan Forsythe. Same with this guy right here. So dynamic.
Coming off a 326 month of August. It's upstairs, and the other thing is, you know, he's hitting the ball to all fields, shortening up on that swing. But he has also demonstrated by the home run he hit Sunday in the Kansas City series, there's still plenty of power right there. So he's not giving that up. He's just becoming a better hitter all around.
It's situational. You know, that home run was on a 2-0 count. So, you know, in that count, look for a mistake out over and turn it loose. You think about some of the other hits, you know, with 2 strikes. He did a great job in the month of August in cutting way down on his strikeouts. Realizing, hey, listen, if I can just with 2 strikes, even if I just put the ball in play, a chopper the other way is a single for me.
Well, you can imagine with his speed and with his power under control and picking his moments, how dangerous he could be. Ground ball shortstop. Cabrera low toss. Great pickup in the middle there by Forsythe to get the double play. Cabrera, Forsythe to Loney, and nicely done in the middle by Logan.
Yeah, as Drupal Cabrera comes in low and hot with the flip, but Logan, boy, what a nice scoop and footwork around the bag right here. And I mean, getting rid of it quick too. I mean, hot potato right on the money. Another part of the game of Logan Forsythe that you've come to really respect.
On those games when the Rays have moved him to first,
I've quit.
It's a letdown.
I've quit.
Yeah, because you hate to see him not play second base.
That's when I start to check out and look at other things.
That's a strike.
I'll
Quickly 0-2 to Joseph.
I think the first time they did that is when I came out with the bedbug story in the car with the whole, you know.
There you go.
Remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just the game's just not interesting anymore.
Note to self and to producer. Keep Forsythe at second. This one deflected by Smiley, and that's going to go as an infield hit. It's an out if he doesn't touch it, but he deflected it halfway between Cabrera and Longoria.
Yeah, and that's when you want to kick yourself as a pitcher. It's a chopper. It's going to be, you know, barring something completely unforeseen, an inning-ending ground ball. and you could see the reaction of Smiley, a little pirouette out there, like, are you kidding me?
And it comes on an 0-2 count as well. So you're that close to getting out of the inning and really having a quick inning. You know, he was about to retire the side on 10 pitches. Now he faces Alvarez. And the pitch is a strike. Alvarez at their AAA Norfolk club hit 16 home runs, hit 275. He has a great arm. Cutting the miss, 0-2. He got a little piece of that, a foul ball. Joseph had moved up to second. He'll return to first. Just a little piece of that one, and we'll take Chris Guccione's word for it. Count holds at 2 strikes. Alvarez gets a new bat. Alvarez, in addition to the Orioles organization out of Cuba, they're getting a look at him here. Made his major league debut at the end of August against Texas. And a cut and a miss. Breaking ball got him to chase. A man left, 2 hits. No score through 2. History presented by Geico on September 6th, 1995. Cal Ripken played in his 2,131st consecutive game, breaking Lou Gehrig's record. Cal Ripken went on to play in 2,632 straight games before the streak ended in 1998. 19-time All-Star. Brady Sizemore leads off the third. 1 ball and no strikes. Sizemore, Nava, and Longoria. Line drive, and it's grabbed by Davis. Davis with that big first baseman's mitt. Got up there to grab that one and take a potential extra base hit away from Sizemore.
Yeah, nice job of sitting back on that breaking ball by Tillman, and then a rocket shot that Chris Davis was able to backhand and make a heck of a play. I mean, you could just see there's just no time to react.
You had ideas of that one hooking into the corner, and Alvarez was going to have to chase it. But Davis caught it, one gone, and the pitch to Nava is low. Nava picked up the first hit of the game, a one-out single in the first. It's 1-1. Nava with 9 career hits off Tillman, 4 of those doubles. Two balls and a strike. It's 3-1. On deck, Evan Longoria. And there's a strike. Right there on the corner, 3-2. Tillman, 27 years old, born in Anaheim. He came to the Orioles in that big deal with Seattle. The Orioles got a boatload of talent in that deal for Eric Bedard, including Tillman and Adam Jones, George Sherrill, the left-hander. He was an important part of the bullpen for a time.
He's certainly a useful piece, and now your opening day starter, your all-star Gold Glove center fielder.
Ground ball. Scope scoops and throws to Davis. Nava's the second out.
Give me that 5 times fast. Scope scoops. He did.
He almost looks like Scoop with that double O. Pronounced Scope. It's a pretty good name for an infielder.
A lot of upside with Mr. Scope. No question about that.
And he, for a middle infielder, gives you some pop too with the bat. Now Evan Longoria, and he takes a strike. Evan looked at a fly ball into right his first time up. Now he's behind in the count. Here's the home run he hit last night, a towering fly ball that came in the 5th inning. One of 3 home runs the Rays hit. They got 2 off the starter Wei-In Chen. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Cabrera homered, Longoria homered off Chen, and then Beckham hit one off Brad Brock. Swing and a miss. Longoria missed the fastball. Bottom of the 3rd coming, no score. home or on the road with the DJ Kitty Plush Window Cling, presented by Tradewinds Island Resorts. All fans receive the DJ Kitty giveaway while supplies last on Saturday, September 12th, as the Rays take on the Red Sox. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Paul Yanis, the shortstop, takes the pitch, and that's in there for a strike. Yanis 4 of 13, spent the year at Norfolk, hit .235 there. An outstanding defensive shortstop. And he's behind in the count, 0-2. Ground ball handled by Forsythe. It's the first out in the third. Go back around to the top of the order. Manny Machado. Machado had 2 hits last night and had the home run taken away from him by Kevin Kiermaier. Kiermaier sustained a mild sprain of his right ankle making that play. So he's not in the lineup tonight. There's Kevin. A strike at the knees, 0-2. Machado, only 23 years old, already a two-time All-Star, and made his first start in the major leagues at shortstop last night. He's back at third base tonight.
And it was amazing when he came to the big leagues, even at such a young age, how advanced his game was.
Jammed and popped up. That's foul. No play.
And he just has that high baseball IQ. Understands the game, the nuances of the game. Obviously still learning, but came a lot more advanced than other kids his age.
Popped up. Loney trying to chase it down, but that's going to fall fair. Nava's going to pick it up. Quick throw to second, and he is safe at second base. He kept that left hand on the bag. Cabrera kept the tag on him just in case. And Machado drops a double into shallow right. So his 27th double of the year. And that is career number 100 for Machado in the two-base hit department.
Well, and not what you think of. You think of a double, you think about a shot into the gap. That's just a bloop fly ball down the line. It was well placed. Good hustle out of the box allows Machado to pick up that double here with one out.
So Machado picking up his 100th career double already. He's only 23. Steve Pearce takes the pitch low. 1 ball, no strikes. Wave and a miss. 1-1. Machado reaching 100 doubles, second fewest games played. Oh, the Orioles, Cal Ripken Jr. just ahead of him. Oh, 1-1 to Pearce. There goes Machado. The pitch bounds away from Aaron Sebia. And the rebound comes back in his direction. So over to third, Machado, he was breaking. So he'll get a stolen base on that as the pitch bounded away from Aaron Sebia.
Well, the Orioles don't do a lot of running. Machado, one of the guys that will, and you can see right there, it was trying to, Aaron Sebia is trying to backhand this pick to make a throw. And by doing so, off the shin guard, Machado a quick thought, but it was a great jump off of Drew Smyly. He was going to get that bag regardless.
17th stolen base. 2-1 popped up. Loney after this one up the line into foul territory. Just can't get there. And the count will go out to 2-2.
Boy, a tough angle play for James Loney. It looked for a minute off the bat that he was going to have a shot at it. Ends up going down into the slide. You can see playing in. He's got a long way to run and came that close.
So both Machado, who dropped the double fair in that department, in that direction. Now Pierce dropping one foul out of the reach of Loney. Two. Pop fly ball. Short right center. And out there. What a play right there by Forsythe to turn. That's Cabrera. No, it is Forsythe. It is Forsythe. Yep. And then to get the ball back to the infield as quickly as he did.
Terrible play by Manny Machado. Terrible. He should have been tagging up the entire way. He caught himself off the bag. There's no way you're going to throw him out. Even though you get it back in, that's your throw. Manny Machado is going to score easily. That's why you heard some boos from the fans here and why Steve Pierce was so mad. Now he takes off, then it's caught. Now he's got to go back too late. Yeah, and you better believe it. Pierce is livid, and he should be. That's a run. This is a team that's had trouble scoring, trouble getting leads, and a bad base running blunder there by Machado.
Now, foul ball by Adam Jones. Boy, and what a play by Forsythe, who was on the shortstop side of second to get out there. Nava and Geyer could not get there, and Forsythe did. Machado still at third with 2 outs. Cut and a miss on a pitch up. Jones went out to center his first time. Fouls it back. Well, the Rays got a fine play by Forsythe, but a break on the base running Machado. Upstairs, 1 ball, 2 strikes. Shot foul. Rebounds off the stands and right back out to Longoria. Still a 1-2 count. And a cut and a miss. Big strikeout for Drew Smyly to retire the side. His second strikeout of the night. Now time for you to tweet your strongest fan photo. Use hashtag SSDataStrongFan and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile. Rays have left 3. The Orioles have stranded 3. And John Jaso will begin the 4th inning against Tillman. It's pulled foul, strike 1. Logan Forsythe will be next, and then Asdrubal Cabrera. Two. One ball, 2 strikes. And strike 3 called on Jaso. He's out on strikes for the 2nd time. That's 5 strikeouts for Tillman.
Yeah, Tillman has not been a big strikeout guy this year at all, but you also don't expect changeups up and in. And that's exactly where that pitch was. Kind of ties Jaso up, but he gets the call.
Strike to Logan Forsythe. One. Cabrera will be next. Liner up the left side toward the corner. Pierce will keep it out around first. Forsythe heads for second, and he's in there ahead of the throw with a double. Logan Forsythe now 2 for 2.
That was like a schoolyard race. Logan Forsythe getting a good jump out of the box. Steve Pierce is tearing to get this ball, knowing that Logan is probably going to be looking to go for 2. This is a changeup. It stays up, recognized by Forsythe. And then watch the race. When Pierce gets over to that ball as quickly as he can. Made it close at second.
Now Asdrubal Cabrera. And he shoots it up the left side. That will be just foul.
And thank goodness, because Asdrubal Cabrera wasn't out of the batter's box.
Yeah, he was trying to determine if it was going to be fair or foul. Forget that.
Yeah, let the umpire. That's their job. You just run. I mean, this was that close. And at this point, ball down, Cabrera was probably 8 feet, 10 feet from the box. Oh, he can't find it. He couldn't find it. Thought that was way foul. That makes more sense.
Takes that one away, and it's 1-1.
Yeah, those eyes immediately went up into the stands, and then when he couldn't find it up there, he's like, uh-oh.
He was hit by an 0-2 pitch his first time. Away. All 3 of these pitches away from him. 2-1 to count. So the Rays with a great scoring opportunity. A 1-out double by Forsythe. Three and 1. It's James Loney on deck. And ball 4 is low. Cabrera on for the second straight time. This time via the walk. James Loney. Loney lined out to Pierce and left his first time. There's second time through against Tillman tonight. Loney fouls a pitch the other way. Pitch cutting in on him. He fouled it down the left side and back. Ground ball up the middle, right over the bag, through into center. Forsythe not wasting any time getting to the plate, and the Rays lead 1-0.
I thought Adam Jones was going to come up gunning for Forsythe and did not do it. But James Loney, who lined out with runners at first and second in his last at bat, now middle of the field, and this may have clipped second base right there. Yeah, bounces off the bag. And Jones elects to not throw this ball. He gets to it. Logan had just made the turn. Thought better of it. Rays lead.
Well, the fact that it did hit second base may have worked to the Rays' advantage to slow that ball a little bit.
A little bit. You're right. It popped up off that bag, and maybe that little bit of steam bought Logan an extra step or two.
Runners go, and the pitch is fouled out of play by Brandon Guyer.
As you can see there, he likes to throw.
13 assists along with Kevin Kiermaier. One and one to count on Guyer. An opportunity for more. Cabrera's at second, Loney's at first. Guyer struck out his first time. Ground ball in the hole, stopped by Yanich. Throw to second wide, everybody is safe. Well, a great effort by Yanich going into the hole over there at shortstop. And the Rays have loaded the bases on the infield hit for Brandon Guyer.
Well, Guyer trying to get this ball out into left field. Yanich, a great dive. Probably kept the Rays from an extra run there by keeping that ball in the infield, but there's just no play to be made at this point.
So a double by Forsythe and the walk to Cabrera. RBI single by Loney, giving the Rays a 1-0 lead, and the infield hit for Guyer. And the Rays have him loaded for J.P. Arancibia. Pitch upstairs. And Sebia 2 for 10 since coming to the Rays from Durham. One.
A real opportunity here to start to put some distance between yourself and the Orioles. Bases loaded. Number of hits in this inning already. A guy with a lot of success in these situations at the plate.
And that's going to be a base hit, dropping into center. Cabrera will score. They'll wave Loney to the plate. The Rays get 2. Geyer goes to third on the base hit by Aaron Sebia. And the Rays open a 3-run lead in the 4th inning.
Well, you got to credit the Rays, playing a team that has been reeling, and they just continue to put the pressure on and do what they need to do. Big hit here by Aaron Sebia. It's now 3-0. Still got runners at first and third. Just 1 out.
Dave Wallace, the pitching coach, spending time on the mound with Chris Tillman. Forsythe, Cabrera, and Loney have scored. Loney with a run batted in, and Aaron Sebia with 2. And we'll go back around to the top of the order. Grady Sizemore. Sizemore lined a hard shot down to first in the 3rd, only to have Chris Davis make the catch. Ground ball. Scope. Yanish 1. First base safe there. And the run scores. The inability to turn that double play will give the Rays another run.
That's on Jonathan Scope. A bad feed to Yanish. They had it set up perfectly for an inning-ending double play, but the feed to Yanish is wide. Watch how Yanish has to reach for this. It just throws off the timing of the play. Now he's not coming across second base. He's got to reach back, reset himself. All the rhythm of the play gone, and Sizemore beats it out.
So Geyer crossing the plate with the 4th run of the inning. Daniel Nava becomes the 8th hitter of the inning. Pitch is inside. Nava singled in the 1st. That's a strike, popping away from Wieters, but no opportunity to advance for Sizemore. Ground ball, right side. Scope with the throw to first. Going to be in time to get Nava. And the Rays are out, but they score 4 to take a 4-0 lead.
Represents the start of the home stretch in Major League Baseball. It is also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Today, the Rays players, coaches, and manager wore this Pediatric Cancer Foundation shirt to raise awareness for childhood cancer. Got all the big names that the Rays are affiliated with on the shirt, including Moffitt Cancer Center, All Children's Hospital, and of course the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. Guys, here's what's happening. The players, coaches, and the manager Kevin Cash are all going to sign their individual shirts they wore during BP today. And then they're going to put them online at RaysBaseball.com as part of an auction. That auction will begin tonight at 10 o'clock and go for 1 week until 8 o'clock on September 8th. Great cause. So many players are tight with a lot of the people that have been affiliated with or families of those childhood cancer patients in the Tampa Bay area. So go to RaysBaseball.com and get yourself a shirt for a great cause. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, best cause in the world, and the Rays are right there with it, supporting it, and showing that again tonight during BP. Chris Davis leads off the bottom of the 4th inning. The count's 1 strike. The Rays with a 4-run lead now for Drew Smiley. Davis with a count of a ball and a strike. Wieters next, and then Scope. It's 2-1. Smiley gave up a walk in the first, a couple of hits, a scratch hit in the second. Gave up a looping double in the third. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Done a nice job so far of keeping the Oriole hitters off stride and moving his pitches around. That's what he does. The coaching box at first, still 2-2. And he's been a big strikeout guy. You'd think of a guy with a strikeout per inning of throwing 95 plus. He does not do that. He came into this game with 32 strikeouts in 30 2/3 innings.
Utilizing the whole strike zone, you think about the elevated fastball like that.
And there's one, strikeout number 4 tonight for him.
Well, we talked early in the game, you got to know who to be able to throw that pitch against. The Rays do a great job, Jim Hickey, preparing his pitchers for what their stuff can do to each hitter. And we said early on, Chris Davis, a prime candidate for the elevated heater because he likes the ball down and out over the plate, just cannot get up to it.
The first pitch strike to Wieters.
Well, and now you have the opportunity of this Oriole lineup to start to get out of what it does best. I mean, this is a team that's built on the home run. Really, they're very one-dimensional offensively. When you find yourself down 4-0 and you're a power-laden team anyway, you start to really swing big. You try to hit that 3-run homer with nobody on base, and that will play right into Smiley's hands.
Wieters held up. It's 1-2.
Not to mention, what is the collective mindset of this Oriole team? Losing 11 out of 12. 2 weeks ago, they were a shoo-in for the playoffs. Now, 11 out of 12, outside looking in, fading fast, playing sloppy, not playing smart. Got to be driving that man right there crazy.
Cut and a miss. Wieters out on strikes. Back-to-back strikeouts here. Breaking ball taking care of him. Well, don't miss tomorrow. Wednesday night showdown presented by Mazda when the Rays take on the Orioles again. Our coverage begins at 6:30 here on Sun Sports, and Erasmo Ramirez will be on the hill against Kevin Gausman. A hard-throwing right-hander against Ramirez. Erasmo, after win number 11, he comes in 10-5. And Matt Moore has rejoined the club with the rosters expanded. Line drive into left center field. Scope's on his way to second. A stand-up double for Scope.
That's just Jonathan Scope taking advantage of a mistake by Smiley. You're going to make a handful of these in each and every game. It doesn't matter how well you pitch. You're going to make a mistake, and that right there little cutter that stayed flat and up. You just hope that when you make those mistakes, they get fouled off or hit at somebody.
4 hits allowed by Smiley, a 2-out double here for Scope. Caleb Joseph is the hitter. Just missed a fastball. 1-0. Into the dirt, blocked by Aaron Sebia, and no attempt to move up by Scope. You know, you get a team in a situation where the Orioles are, dropping 11 out of 12, and they do seem to lose literally a step or a half step on balls in the dirt that normally they might be thinking of taking an extra base. They just don't quite get that jump.
You know, when you play with confidence, you play free and easy. You know you're going to make the play. You play loosey-goosey. When you're in one of these kind of free falls and knowing that you're running out of time, you're overthinking everything, and that will cause you to play slow. No doubt about it. And that's why, you know, and you've got to credit the Rays so far, halfway through this series. You take it to teams like this. You just take it to them. You push them right out of the picture. You don't let them hang around. You don't let them steal a game or two from you. You just come in, you handle your business, and you get out of Dodge. And right now, they're well on their way in this game, too.
Scope at second with a 2-out double. 2-1 to Caleb Joseph. Now it's 2-2.
And with all the pitchers that the Rays brought up here, you know, coming September 1st, rosters expand. You look out at that Rays bullpen, you're going to get to the point where Kevin Cash could go a pitcher, a hitter. Just finish the game here pretty soon.
Two. He got him. Pitch in the dirt. Aaron Sebia fires to first. 3 strikeouts in the inning. We go to the 5th. It's 4-0 Rays. We mentioned the expanded rosters come September, and the Rays have recalled Matt Moore, C.J. Riefenhauser, and Kirby Yates, 3 pitchers. And they figure Matt Moore is going to make his starts. Richie Schaefer's back, so is Mikey Montook, and we see Luke Maile, the catcher, called up from Durham. First pitch taken by Evan Longoria for ball 1. Evan 0 for 2, so 6 called from the minor leagues. And there could be more. There could be a second wave. But right now, those 6. Rays had to find roster space for Luke Maile, the catcher. Over the mound and right there on the shortstop side, the second scope, the second baseman throws out Longoria. So the Rays designated Hak Ju Lee for assignment. And that made space on the 40-man roster for Maile. John Jaso up here now. Jaso 0 for 2. Twice has struck out and missed that first pitch for a strike. With Matt Moore coming in to start, the question is, what will they do with the rotation? And Kevin Cash said there will not be a 6-man rotation. 0-2. Just wait for word on how they're going to work that out.
I'll tell you something. Aside from that, how many fastballs have we seen John Jaso swing through here tonight? And the swing has not looked right. You know, he had that wrist issue and obviously missed a whole lot of time with that. Came back, was swinging the bat great, but the swings do not look right here tonight. And he's getting beat by pitches that he typically is hitting hard somewhere.
And that ball is fair, just inside the bag at third. He's on his way to second. And the throw is not in time. That was close. Jaso got in there. Jeff Nelson on the call out there.
He's just able to keep that ball inside the bag. Pierce hustling over. The bare hand, the throw. Boom, boom. Absolutely in there. But yes, and going back to the pitching, that will be interesting because, you know, they were asked, you know, Kevin Cash was asked a couple of days ago about if they were going to limit Carnes, limit Erasmo Ramirez. Nope, those guys are going to be fine. We don't need to limit their innings. You think, you know, Smiley's not going to come out. He just got back in. Archer's not going to come out. Odorizzi is not going to come back out. So you wonder who's it going to be.
How are they going to do that?
If you're going to start Moore and not go to a 6-man, then you think it comes down to Erasmo or Nathan Carnes. That's what you would think. I mean, who knows?
Waldo strike to Logan Forsythe. Well, they could do that, or they could view it as an opportunity to get creative. And you never know what might be around the corner in that regard. One and two. You know, they could skip a couple guys, and I mean, then basically you've got a 5.5-man rotation instead of a 6-man. Maybe that's it. A 1-2 count on Forsythe. Holding at 1 and 2. So Steve Johnson up in the bullpen for Baltimore. 1 on, 1 out in the 5th inning. Tillman in the mid-80s in pitch count so far. Up the middle, base hit into center. Jaso's going to be held. It will be first and third.
How about Logan Forsythe? I mean, fouling off fastball after fastball. Then he gets the slow curveball. Watch him wait back on it. Oh, just keep the hands back. Use the middle of the field. I'll tell you something. That's as good as it gets.
You know, that's almost as if there's a pitcher on the mound saying, I'm going to throw you a slow breaking ball. And he says, okay. And then he just hits it hard up the middle.
I mean, you saw the body start to want to head out there, but keeping those hands back. And we talk about how quick his hands are. So if he keeps them back, he can still fire him through the zone. And yeah, then he goes right back at Tillman with a bullet.
Here's Asdrubal Cabrera. He takes a big cut, the fastball. Take a look at Forsythe again on the base hit.
Watch the body start to go, the hands stay back, a little pause, and then right back up the middle.
High fly ball back toward the corner. Alvarez over there. That ball's going to be out of play. A foul ball. Long foul ball struck by Cabrera. One and two. It's popped up, foul, carries out of play. Rays put up 4 runs in the 4th inning on 4 hits. First and third with 1 out in the 5th. Fly ball back into center. Jones set to make the catch. Jaso tags, heads to the plate. He scores, and down to second base goes Forsythe. Rays pick up their 5th run. Sacrifice fly to center by Cabrera.
They'll continue to add on. Cabrera able to get that fly ball out to center field, get it deep enough to be able to score. Jaso standing up, and because of the throw by Jones, not anywhere near a cutoff man. He was going for it, and Forsythe can move up.
James Loney with first base open will be walked intentionally. Loney had driven in a run with a base hit and scored in the 4th. So the walk will bring Geyer up there and place men at first and second. And here comes Showalter, and there goes Tillman. Pitching change coming, and we'll be back in a moment. By Checkers. Epic meals, epic deals. Grow Financial. Don't go through life. Grow through life. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Here in Baltimore, the Rays have built a 5-0 lead. We're in the top of the 5th inning. And the Orioles make a pitching change. Steve Johnson will take over on the mound.
You can see his numbers with Norfolk. 3 starts sprinkled into 32 games overall. Good ERA, 2.30. How about the strikeouts?
Brandon Guyer faces him, takes the pitch for a strike. Guyer singled and scored a run in the 4th. Forsythe at second right now, and Loney at first. Shot back into left. Pierce back. It's going to be over his head. Off the bottom of the wall. Forsythe will score. Loney will go to third on the double by Guyer. And the Rays make it 6-0. Forsythe scores from second. He took it easy, scoring from second during the pitching change. He had a little conference with Ron Porterfield and Kevin Cash. So we hope that he's all right. Rays have a 6-run lead. Aaron Sebia now the hitter. Second and third. It's 1-1. Guyer picking up an RBI and his 15th double. The Rays have scored twice in the inning. Five of the 6 runs batted in have come from the lower part of the order. Aaron Sebia out of the 9th spot 2. Guyer 1, Loney 1, and Cabrera ahead of Loney 1. Sizemore has the other run batted in. And it's now 3-1 the count to JP Aaron Sebia.
Well, runners at second and third. The Rays already with the 6-run lead. Johnson needs to come out over the plate here. Aaron Sebia knows it.
And he chases a pitch.
That's the predetermined swing. That's 3-1. I know he's got to throw a strike here, and I'm ready to swing. I'm going to swing, and all of a sudden he throws a ball that's a foot off the plate, and the swing's already in progress.
Two, and he fouls it.
Swung at both 4 and 5. He wants to drive those runs in.
Yeah, you put a couple guys in scoring position, and they get a little over anxious.
Memo to self: you could kick the rosin bag up there with runners in scoring position, and Aaron Sebia is swinging.
He pops it up. High foul ball. Machado's going to run out of room. That's how to play. So we'll see another 3-2 pitch. Jaso and Forsythe have scored. Loney's at third. Guyer on second base. Another 3-2 pitch. Ground ball through the hole. Loney's going to score. Guyer will be waved home. 2 more runs score. Aaron Sebia does get those 2 runners home. His 3rd and 4th runs batted into the night. And suddenly it's an 8-0 game.
Boy, the route is on. There's just no stop right now in the Rays in their approach against the Orioles. And Aaron Sebia finally does get the pitch out over the plate, gets extended, gets it in the hole, and gets 2 more runs batted in.
7 runs charged to Tillman, 1 to Johnson. Rays 6 of 10 with men in scoring position with a sacrifice fly added. First pitch to Sizemore is a strike. There's the breakout. The Rays lead 8-0. They've out hit Baltimore 10-4. Now 1-1. Two and one. This one gets through Wieters, and down to second goes Aaron Sebia. Well, the pitch down, and it got by Wieters.
Starts off down, stays down, able to 5-hole Wieters, and it just continues to be ugly and sloppy for the Orioles.
Three and one to count on Sizemore. He lifts a high fly ball into right. Alvarez waits and makes the catch. Again, the Rays send 8 men to the plate, and they put up 4. 8-0 Tampa Bay. To lead here midway through the 5th inning. Cal Ripken Jr. acknowledging the crowd here. Special ceremonies in regard to his consecutive game streak. Before the game, threw out the first pitch, a long video presentation of that night. And Cal Ripken Jr. throwing out the first pitch on a special night here in Baltimore. Drew Smyly, meanwhile, has shut out Baltimore through 4 innings on 4 hits. First pitch to Alvarez is a ball. And he takes another one up, 2-0. Tim Beckham has taken over at second base in the place of Logan Forsythe. Two and one to count. It's Loney after this one in foul territory, and Alvarez is the first out. Bring up the number 9 hitter, the shortstop, Paul Yandish. Grounded out his first time. Pops this one up. Loney coming in. That'll be a fair ball. So 2 up and 2 down.
You can't start an inning off much better. I mean, your team has completely gone out and blown this game open, and you come out and do exactly what you need to do. 2 quick outs on the verge of getting your team back into the dugout. Now, what must be going through the mind of Buck Showalter as he watches his team implode?
Well, here's Machado, and about the only thing the Oriole fans have had to cheer about was his 100th double back in the 3rd. 100 doubles in his career. Makes him the youngest Oriole to get there at 100 doubles. Days younger than Cal Ripken Jr. 1-1 to count to Machado. 1 for 2 overall. Well, the first 420 games for Machado and Ripken. A pretty interesting comparison right there.
Housekeeping.
Updating it right now.
Updating it.
2-2. It is pretty interesting when you look at those numbers through their careers. And Machado, by the way, also has the current active major league lead in consecutive games played. Ground ball handled by the shortstop, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. We go to the 6th, 8-0. The Rays, his 7th overall, and so far 4 hits and 5 shutout innings with a walk and 6 strikeouts, and a lot of help at the plate from his battery mate J.P. Arancibia drove in 2 of the 4 runs in the 4th and drove in 2 of the 4 runs in the 5th. So a 4-run batted in night for Arancibia. So the Rays battery doing a lot of the heavy lifting here so far. Daniel Nava will open the 6th inning against Steve Johnson. Pitches a ball. Nava 1 out of 3. He picked up a base hit in the 1st. Two and 0. Action in the bullpen. The lefty T.J. McFarland. Johnson born in Baltimore. He just turned 28 yesterday. The Orioles right-hander. And he's behind Nava. Strike call, 3-1. Evan Longoria waiting to hit next. Nava draws the walk. So the leadoff man aboard. We'll get Longoria up there. Outfit your Rays Super Kid with his or her very own superhero cape t-shirt, presented by the Tampa Bay Times, Sunday, September 13th, when the Rays meet the Red Sox. Kids 14 and under receive the super giveaway while supplies last. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Pitch blocked by Wieters. So after the walk to Nava, it's 1-0 to Longoria. Tillman started, gave up 7, 1-run charge to Johnson. There's a strike. Johnson so far has surrendered a double to Geyer, then the base hit to Arancibia before he got Sizemore on a fly ball. That ended the 5th, but a walk to Nava has opened the 6th. Longoria takes that one inside.
And a lot of these misses have been, well, kind of all over the place. Yanking some pitches. There was a changeup, left arm side in. And we saw the big strikeout numbers at Norfolk.
And 3-1.
Just having trouble locating pitches, trouble throwing strikes. Nothing overpowering here for Johnson, so he realizes he needs to be in good areas, and he can't find them.
3-2. And ball 4. So a couple walks, and that's going to be it for Johnson. He faces 5 hitters, 4 reach, and a pitching change on the way. when former Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh makes his debut as head coach of his alma mater and leads the Wolverines against the Utes of Utah. And the only place you can see it is on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. TJ McFarland takes over for Baltimore. So the Orioles in a tough stretch over the last couple of weeks and in this game tonight.
They have not been able to avoid trouble here against the Rays. It hasn't mattered what they've tried, who they've brought in. Trouble just continues to find this Oriole team. Some of it self-inflicted, but some of it is just the Rays getting after them.
And Richie Schaefer will pinch hit for John Jaso with the left-hander McFarland in the game. Schaefer, one of the 6 players recalled from the Durham Bulls today with the expansion of their rosters here in September. He goes after the pitch and skies one into center field. Adam Jones waiting for it. So 1 out here in the 6th inning with men at first and second. Let's check in with Todd.
Dwayne, just heard from the Rays clubhouse. Logan Forsythe left the game with left groin tightness. Left groin tightness does not sound like it's anything serious. With the score being 8-0, gives the Rays a little leverage to take a little bit more of a precautious approach today. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you. We saw him take it easy scoring from second. And he's out of the game, and in his place, Tim Beckham, who is up for the first time, making his initial plate appearance of the game. Pitch is a strike. Nava at second, Lagori at first. They were walked by Johnson. Beckham down 0-2. Beckham homered last night in the 6th inning, connecting off the right-hander Brad Brock, his 7th home run of the year. And look at that pitch down. Beckham jumped on the first pitch he saw from Brock. Hit it out to left.
Was that 3 home runs for the Rays last night, flexing their muscles here in Baltimore? 2 off Chen.
Two and two. Asdrubal Cabrera on deck. Beckham still with the big cut there, and he rolls it foul. 7 runs and 4 2/3 off Tillman. Johnson got credit for 1/3 of an inning. 1 run charged to him, and he's responsible for 2 men on as he departs. It's going to take the count full. Three-two. Skied to right. Alvarez there to make the catch. So 2 outs recorded by McFarland. And still at first and second as Asdrubal Cabrera heads to the plate. Well, Cabrera has been on base twice. He scored a run and has driven home a run and has yet to log an official at bat in this game.
This is coming on the heels of a very productive August, by far and away his best month in just about every meaningful category, and continues to play tremendous defense out at shortstop.
Little tapper by the mound. Scope picks it up and the throw to first in time to retire the Rays, who leave 2. And we go to the bottom of the 6th, 8-0 Tampa Bay. Earlier, we've selected the Data Strong fan photo of the game. So tweet your strongest fan photo to hashtag SS Data Strong Fan for a chance to be featured in an upcoming broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile. Well, I'm not sure what he was scooping by. It appeared to be a bat, still in good shape, not a broken bat, and they'll take good care of the bat after it was scooped by the shovel. There you go. Nice gentle scoop.
Yeah, what exactly do you do with that now? I'm not a big fan of the bat.
Hang it upside down somewhere,
I guess. What model is that? Fruit, Vampire, M110.
Steve Pearce will open the bottom of the 6th inning against the Rays lefty. 1-0. Pearce walked back in the first and then popped out on a good play by Forsythe back in the 3rd. Beckham's now at 2nd and on the shortstop side of the bag with Pearce up there.
Right here, Tim Beckham playing the odds.
Out of play, 1-2. Pierce spent a good amount of time on the disabled list with a left oblique strain. Still 1-2. Found it right back. Well, Smiley in the 70s now in pitch count with these 5 to Pierce. He's at 78. Starting his 3rd time through, he got Machado on a ground ball to end the 5th, and now working to Pierce in the 6th, and a wave and a miss. He's out on strikes.
I'll tell you what, it's been a clinic here tonight for Drew Smiley. Back and forth. The curveball's been good. It's been slow. It's been really a tempo changer for Smiley. Look at this thing. It just never gets there. Look how far out in front Pierce is.
'79 pitches. 7 strikeouts and a walk. Adam Jones takes the first pitch, and that's a strike. One and one.
When you look at Drew Smiley, since coming off the disabled list, his pitch counts in his 3 starts, 95, 91, and 100. You've got a pretty big lead here already. I don't know how long they'll let him go.
There's a cut and a miss at the breaking ball. Well, he seems so free and easy out there and doing as he pleases.
Do you detect sweat anywhere? I
no.
mean, nothing. It really has been one of those types of nights. They don't come around very often.
And he went upstairs to get Jones. Just a lot of off-speed stuff, and then 1 and 2. Here's the high fastball.
He just lulls you to sleep. He has been on his game here tonight. Well, listen, he came into this start having a great track record against the Orioles. In 3 starts against this team, an ERA of 1.42 in the starts. Even better than that when you count his relief appearances against them.
And a first pitch strike to Davis.
How about the average? 162 average. How do you
improve upon that?
Well, yeah. Well, how do you have an ERA with an average that low? One of them may have popped a home run or something, but Drew Smiley throwing well against the Orioles once again.
Fly ball lifted to right center. Nava makes the catch. 1, 2, 3. Go the Orioles, and we move into the 7th with the Rays up 8-0. We're headed into the 7th inning in Baltimore, in the game tonight and all season. Tires Plus donates $100 to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Tampa Bay Rays home run televised on Sun Sports. James Loney preparing to lead off the 7th inning. Geyer next, and then Aaron Sebia. Young man enjoying the evening with the Rays scoring 8 runs, 10 hits tonight. And James Loney has scored 2 of those runs. A base hit drove in a run in the 4th. He scored. He was intentionally walked in the 5th, and he scored. And here he is leading off the 7th against left-hander T.J. McFarland. Strike 1. 7 runs off Tillman and 1 run off Johnson. Two. A little soft liner will be caught by Machado toward the line. 1 out in the 7th inning. Follow the Rays all season with MLB.com At Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, StatCast, and a lot more. Get MLB.com At Bat for your smartphone or tablet. Here's Brandon Geyer. Geyer lines a base hit into left center field. Not wasting any time. Jones up with it. The Rays have their 11th hit. Geyer is 3 for 4 tonight.
Boy, how many times has this team gone double digits in hits? This offense has really come alive starting in August.
And it's a good start to September tonight.
Boy, oh boy. Getting contributions up and down the lineup tonight here, the bottom half has really done just about everything.
Here's Sebia with 4 runs batted in, bounces this one foul.
I think that's what the Rays are going to have to do going forward if they're going to climb back into this race and be relevant in the final days. The offense has to stay productive, do what they've been doing for the past month or so, and the pitching actually needs to get just a little bit better.
Shot to center field. Jones turns around and heads back, and that one is gone. Home run to center field for J.P. Aaron Sebia. His 5th and 6th runs batted into the 90. It's his first home run in a Rays uniform, and that will make it 10-0. Geyer scoring in front of Aaron Sebia. What a night he's having.
Boy, 2, and then 2 more. On a bullet to center field. This ball was going to burn Adam Jones regardless. It ends up getting over his head. Look at the full extension is what did it. And then the carry. We've seen the ball. It's jumping here in this ballpark in this series. Over 410.
Grady Sizemore. Pitch is down. So the Rays add 2 more to make it 10-0. 6 runs batted in for Aaron Sebia. A 2-0 count to Sizemore. To strike 2 and 1. Well, Aaron Sebia has the biggest individual night of the year for the Rays, driving in runs with 6. (3-1) to Sizemore. (3-2). The Rays had a single hitter drive in 4 runs on 3 occasions this year. The last time Tim Beckham at the end of July against the Tigers. And now a 6 RBI night for Aaron Sebia. Little roller right side, and the throw to first in time. (6-3). The shortstop coming over to the right side to handle that ground ball. So Yannish throws out Sizemore. Aaron Sebia tonight with a single, 2 RBIs, another single, 2 RBIs, and then the home run with a man on. Aaron Sebia's 3rd career 6 RBI plus game. Daniel Nava hitting from the right side against McFarland, and that pitch is a strike. (0-2). The pitch is inside. Rays within a couple runs of their biggest run production in a single game. They scored 12 at the end of April against Toronto. 10 runs tonight on 12 hits. Nava's out on strikes. Rays add 2 more on the 2-run home run by J.P. Aaron Sebia. We're in the middle of the 7th inning in Baltimore, and the Rays have built a 10-0 lead. Ten-run attack tonight with 6 runs batted in. We go to the bottom of the 7th inning. Mikey Matuk takes over in left field for Sizemore. And on to the bottom of the 7th we go with Drew Smyly out there on the hill. He's facing Matt Wieters to begin the bottom of the 7th, and the pitch is a strike. Smiley's retired 7 in a row now. 87 pitches on the night. And it's 1-1.
The model of efficiency, and he has been very good. You know, we talked about his search for consistency since coming off the disabled list, and he has found a winning formula here tonight. Been good with the fastball. He's elevated when he's needed to. His curveball's been good. The changeup has been very good.
There's a cut and a miss. He strikes out Wieters with a fastball. Another strikeout for Smyly. That's number 9.
Well, it has been one of 2 pitches. It has been the fastball elevated or the breaking ball below the zone, and that's what he has used the majority of the time to get those 9 strikeouts. He just keeps climbing the ladder with the heater. Oh, then there's the hook out in front. I'll tell you something. He has got it working here tonight. The whole strike zone and then some. A little above, a little below.
And Jonathan Scope takes a pitch upstairs. There's a cut and a miss. He's gone back and forth with those pitches, and he's done a great job. We saw the strikeout of Adam Jones on 4 pitches. He threw him 3 slow breaking balls to get to 1-2, and then got him to chase the high fastball.
And then he'll use the fastball then to set up the off speed. I mean, he just has a great mix tonight, a great feel for what he's doing. And look at that, just back and forth, fastball changeup, fastball changeup. You get these hitters caught in between, and there's just not a whole lot they can do.
Two the count to Scope. And there's a cut and a miss. How about that? Well, that's strikeout number 10 on the evening for Smyly. That's exactly what we were talking about on display here to these first 2 hitters.
Well, you know, he went back and forth with Scope with the fastball changeup. Then when he gets to the money pitch, 2 strikes. How about the breaking ball? Again, not only are you missing it, but you're way out in front. The change of speed on that pitch has been just as effective as the location of it.
Caleb Joseph looks at a strike.
You may want to stop doing that. You get closer to 2, he's putting you away.
Ooh, look out off the railing of the dugout. 0-2, that one in the direction of Erasmo Ramirez, and he ducked that one and comes up smiling. What else is new with him? Way high there, 1-2. Ramirez pitches tomorrow night here against Kevin Gausman. The wrap-up game of this series. I don't know if there's a guy happier than Ramirez or not. Breaking ball, pops it up, foul. Will carry out of play.
Off the top of the head, you can't think of one. I mean, the guy's never in a bad mood. Seemingly never in a bad mood. Always.
We've just never seen it.
No.
Fly ball toward the line and left. Matuk in a hurry over there to get it. 1-2-3. Orioles down in order, and we go to the 8th, 10-0. Been a big night for the Rays. The game summary brought to you by Gold and Diamond Stores. 10 runs for the Rays tonight on 12 hits, a couple of 4-run innings, and then 2 in the 7th inning. J.P. Arencibia has driven in 6 runs, and what a night for Drew Smyly.
Well, listen, Buck Showalter was one of the guys who, when the Rays traded David Price, he liked the return with Drew Smyly. Thought that there was a lot of upside with him, and he's had a front row seat for it all night here tonight. 7 shutout innings, double-digit punch-outs, making it look easy. A lot easier than it actually is.
See the changes. Paredes in right field as Alvarez goes to center. The new pitcher is Oliver Drake. And it's a strike to count on Longoria, who fouls away the first pitch. Liner into left, and that's going to be a base hit. So Longoria is aboard. A man at first with nobody out in the 8th inning, and it's time for Todd Callis. Todd?
Hey, Dwayne, how's it going?
Pretty good, thank you.
Hey, you mentioned last time Richie Schaefer was batting. He was one of the 6 guys called up from Durham. Richie will primarily, according to Kevin Cash, play first, third, and DH. Although Cash also added, last time I told you guys he wouldn't play the outfield, and he did. So just in case, Schaefer did play 4 games in the outfield while he was with Durham after being sent down. Happy to be back, and we saw some good ABs from this kid the first time around, guys.
And he jumped on the first pitch when he pinch hit in the 6th, hit a high fly ball to center. 1 strike to count here in the 8th as he faces Drake. And is down now 0-2.
Well, it's good to know that primarily he's only going to play first, third, DH, or outfield.
Yeah, that kind of narrows it down.
Right, right. Probably not going to pitch. Maybe he won't play some short, and that's about it.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
Well, that's the thing. When the rosters expand, for a team that likes to play matchups anyway, and you get all those extra bodies, well, it could get real interesting.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to make all kinds of moves with an extended roster. Now 3 balls, 2 strikes. And Beckham is on deck. High fly ball, right center field. Paredes will misplay that one. Longoria is going to head to third. Schaefer into second. Second and third with nobody out.
Would someone please explain to me what is happening here? Besides watching the Baltimore Orioles completely melt down right before our very eyes, that's a fly ball out to right center field. Jimmy Paredes looked like he was scared to death of this thing. I mean, Richie Schaefer puts a good charge into it, but he's there, ready. Just missed it.
And the Rays have another scoring opportunity. Schaefer's going to get a double on that. Tim Beckham takes ball 1. So a single for Longoria, and the double that truly was over the head and the outstretched glove of Paredes. Pitch is up, 2-0. If you're on the mound or anywhere else in the ballpark, you think that ball should have been caught.
I would certainly hope so. I mean, that's a fly ball to right field that you had to move a little bit for.
Popped up, foul. That's coming straight back and will be out of play. 2-1. Strike runs the count to 2-2. Drake up from Norfolk. This is his third stint with Baltimore this year. Cabrera on deck. Will be fouled out of play. Ten runs, 14 hits for the Rays. No runs, 4 hits for Baltimore. Little tapper. Drake will flip it to first. The runners hold at second and third. As the pitcher, Oliver Drake, takes care of that tap. That's the first out. Two more men in scoring position for the Rays. And now we start to get down into the productive part of the Rays lineup, where all of the runs batted in have come from, with the exception of Sizemore's ground ball in the fourth that got a run home. Bottom part of the order has been driving in the runs tonight.
Well, and I mean, here another great opportunity for a hitter that had a scorching month of August.
Cabrera has been hit by a pitch, has walked, drove in a run with a fly ball, and has grounded out. So a run batted in and a run scored tonight for Cabrera. Pitch is in there for a strike. 7 runs charged to the starter Tillman. 1 run charged to Johnson and 2 to McFarland. And now we have Oliver Drake on the hill. One strike to count to Cabrera. It's fouled back. Fastball around 90. That's a fair ball. Diving stop by Davis. He'll make the play at first. Longoria crosses the plate. The Rays have 11 runs. Cabrera picks up his second run batted in. Schaefer advances to third. Cabrera's the second out. Nice play by Davis.
Well, I'll tell you what, that line drive that he was able to snag off the bat of Grady Sizemore, a heck of a play right there.
Well, here's Luke Maile, just up from Durham. He's going to pinch hit for James Loney and make his big league debut.
How about the introduction that he got?
Cut the miss, strike one.
On the road.
Well, his family in the front row there. And he did get quite an introduction from the public address announcer here. Fouls it back.
I'll tell you what, you would have loved that introduction at home, let alone here in Baltimore. That was outstanding. Now deliver, baby.
Young man out of Kentucky. He's been known in the Rays minor leagues for his prowess behind the plate, a good catcher. And there's a fly ball into left. Pierce is there to make the catch. It'll retire the side. Rays get one more. They now lead 11-0. Tonight and lead 11-0. Erasmo Ramirez thinking, how about a few runs tomorrow night?
I mean, save some, please.
Coming up tomorrow on Rays Live, the pregame show presented by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Erasmo Ramirez on the mound, and we will hear from him. And Orestes will break down James Loney tomorrow on the pregame. Leading up to the third and final game of this series. Rene Rivera is going to take over at first base with Loney lifted for the pinch hitter. And Maley, who pinch hit, will stay on to catch. Aaron Sebia out of the game. And Luke Maley getting some congratulations from Chris Guccione there. That's a big night for the young man.
Absolutely.
Alvarez will lead off the bottom of the 8th. The Rays have Kirby Yates on the hill. Pitch is driven foul up the right side. So 7 superb innings for Drew Smyly. And now Kirby Yates comes on. This is his 12th appearance. One and one. Well, Smyly retired the last 10 men he faced. A big cut and a foul ball. 1 and 2. Ten strikeouts for Smyly, 4 hits, 1 walk, no runs in 7 innings on 100 pitches. Two balls, 2 strikes. Cut the miss on the pitch up, and Alvarez out on strikes for the second time tonight. Smyly got him on a curveball back in the 2nd, and Yates got him on the fastball up here in the 8th.
Well, you got the lower 3/4 arm angle, and you combine that with the fastball up above the letters. And the ball just continues to climb.
Here's Paul Yanish. Ball, no strikes. One and one. Well, the Rays started the day in the wild card hunt. 3.5 back, tied with the Angels. Texas has the 2nd wild card spot. Minnesota a game back. Then the Angels and the Rays 3.5 back. Fly ball into right. Nava makes the catch. 2 gone. The Indians were a half game back of the Rays, 4 out. And the Blue Jays are batting in the bottom of the 9th, tied with Cleveland 3-3 right now. Ryan Flaherty will pinch hit for Manny Machado. So it's the left-handed bat of Flaherty here against Yates. That's popped up, foul, and out of play for a strike. White Sox batting in the top of the 6th at Minnesota, and the Twins have a 4-3 lead in that game. The Angels play the A's in Oakland later. 1-1 to count. Flaherty played last night at third base, was 0 for 3 with a walk. Two balls and a strike. A popper foul the other way, and will take the count to 2-2. And there is strike 3 called. 2 strikeouts in the inning. 12 on the night for Rays pitching. 11-0. Brought to you by Hattrick's Catering. Whether it's a business meeting, luncheon, or a tailgate party, Hattrick's Catering is there for you. By SunTrust, new checking options that work as hard as you do. And by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. From Oriole Park, Camden Yards, the Rays carry a big lead into the 9th inning. It's 11-0. They'll face Michael Givens, a right-hander. And he becomes the 5th Baltimore pitcher of the night. He'll face Brandon Guyer. The pitch is inside. Flaherty stays in the game. That's Steve Clevenger behind the plate, replacing Wieters, and Flaherty stays in the game to play third. One to count. A 3-hit night for Brandon Guyer with 3 runs scored and a run batted in. He has 2 singles and a double. And there's a fly ball into short right, going to drop for a base hit. He is 4 for 5 tonight. Brandon Guyer with a 4-hit game.
Boy, it doesn't even matter who the Orioles bring in. The bottom of the Rays lineup just continues to swing the bats. And Brandon Guyer getting an opportunity in the leadoff spot in last night's game against Wei Yin Chen. Dropped down to the 8 hole here tonight. And 4 hits.
Well, Rene Rivera, who entered the game at first, swings and sends a high fly ball into right. Paredes turned around on this one, and he makes the catch this time. And boy, he was turned around again.
Yeah, look at it. He's yelling at himself right now. He has had some interesting routes. One that he never got to. That one.
So 1 out with a runner aboard. Mikey Montook in left, and in the leadoff spot, taking over for Sizemore. And the pitch is a strike. Foul out of play. The 4 hits tonight for Geyer, not the first time that he's had a 4-hit game. He had 4 hits against the Red Sox in May of last year, and 4 hits tonight here in Baltimore. Montook reaching for that pitch is out on strikes. So that'll be the 2nd out. Coming up on Rays Live, the postgame presented by Checkers. Rich and Orestes along. They'll anchor the coverage. We'll hear from Kevin Cash for the manager's postgame press conference, and Todd Callis will be developing and sending interviews up from the clubhouse.
It's got to be nice for Kevin Cash and the rest of that staff. I mean, how many close games have the Rays played? Seemingly every game is contested, 1-2 runs here or there, and you finally get to watch a laugher. Doesn't happen very often. Get to enjoy that gum.
Instead of punishing it. That's a strike to Nava. The count is now 1-1. It's a big cut and a miss. It's 1-2. You have to go all the way back to the 24th of April to find a game this year when the Rays have scored more runs than they've scored tonight. They beat the Blue Jays 12-3 at the Trop on Friday night, April the 24th. And you know who started that game for the Rays? Drew Smiley.
You know what? You know who needs to start hanging out with Drew? Jake Odorizzi.
Yes.
Get some run support.
Cut and a miss. Nava's out on strikes. Rays get a hit, leave a man. And we go to the bottom of the 9th. It's 11-0 Rays. 11-0, the Rays lead moving into the bottom of the 9th inning. A 15-hit at for the Rays tonight. They got 7 innings of shutout baseball, 100 pitches from Drew Smyly, who struck out 10, walked 1, and gave up 4 hits.
And our man has polished off that tall lemonade.
It's been a perfect night for him. Steve Pearce will open the bottom of the 9th, and the first pitch from Kirby Yates is a strike. Yates a couple strikeouts in the 8th. One ball and 1 strike. So Pearce up here, Paredes on deck. And that's a strike. 1 and 2. The Rays 3 outs away from getting back to the 500 mark. And there's a cut and a miss. 13th strikeout for Rays pitching, and that's 14 in a row retired by the combination of Smyly and Yates.
I'll tell you what, I mean, the Rays took control of this game in the middle. 2 big innings back to back. That was the 4th and the 5th inning that gave them an 8-0 lead. And I'll tell you, the Orioles just kind of crawfish right back into the hole. I mean, they just became lifeless, and the Rays taking full advantage, continue to put them down hitter after hitter. They've added on a few more runs.
Jimmy Paredes in the box. There's a ball. Paredes' first at bat since he took over in right field in the 8th. That is off the glove of Longoria. Boy, he almost made a great catch there, but just off his glove, and Paredes has a base hit.
And I think Evans thinking to himself, man, could have had it, should have had it. Put himself in good position, and that ball just deflected off that glove, going the other way. You see him out there basically playing shortstop. Oh, that close.
Well, Chris Davis, he's 0 for 3, all of that against Smyly, and he hits one high and deep into right center field, and that one is out of here. Chris Davis gets Baltimore on the board with his 36th home run of the year. So a single by Paredes, and on the next pitch a home run by Davis gives him 94 runs batted in.
Boy, rebounding from a disappointing year last year. He hit below 200. 26 home runs, 72 RBIs, somewhere in that range. But boy, having a tremendous year once again, and got to that fastball at the belt.
Well, here's Steve Clevenger fouling one back, strike 1.
Well, solid contact and extension from Chris Davis means only one thing: souvenirs.
Well, you could see the leverage in that swing. What a great shot that was of his swing. So powerful as he launched that one. Two and one. Clevenger had a couple of runs batted in last night with a base hit. And the Rays took game 1 of the series 6-3. Count will go to 2-2. Big night for J.P. Arencibia. 6 runs batted in. Fly ball center field. Geyer will go back near the track and makes the catch. Clevenger's the second out. 2 outs, the base is empty with a couple runs home here in the 9th to make it 11-2. Jonathan Schoop. That's a strike. Schoop 1 for 3. He doubled in the 4th inning. Little tapper, that's a foul ball, and it's 0-2. Cleveland and Toronto in the bottom of the 10th, and Toronto tied 3-3. White Sox have taken a 5-4 lead in Minnesota. That game's in the bottom of the 6th. Foul out of play. Texas playing in San Diego tonight. And the Angels are batting in the top of the 1st inning in Oakland. No score in that game. Swing and a miss. Schoop is out of there, and this game is over. Rays win it 11-2. 2-run score in the bottom of the 9th on the home run by Davis for Baltimore. And the Rays have taken the first 2 games of this series, and at the moment stand 3 games back of Texas in the wild card hunt. The Rays back to 500 now at 66-66, as Drew Smyly is outstanding tonight in 7 innings of 10 strikeout shutout baseball. He walked 1, gave up 4 hits. He evens his record at 2-2. Chris Tillman, the losing pitcher, his record now 9-10, and a resounding victory for the Rays. A 15-hit attack. 11-15-0 for the Rays. 9 left. 2-6-0